Hello, everyone. Welcome to TLGS 2024 conference. I'm Ronnie Cox from the University of Tennessee at Martin, and I'll be moderating today's session. I'll also be collecting questions in the chat if you want to put some there. If not, Laura, if you're comfortable doing it, put your email in the chat session. So anyone that might have questions after the session can reach out to you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Laura, and she's going to talk to us about You're Invited, collaborating with faculty and students to create a successful library event, which I'm super excited about.
Thank you so much. Okay, so my name is Laura Semrau. I would love to share with you today on collaborating with faculty and students to create a successful library event. So just a brief introduction. I'm here at Baylor University. We're in Waco, Texas. We were founded in 1845, and we have 20,000 students, about a quarter of which are graduate students. 80 master's programs, 47 doctoral programs, and the libraries that support those students are housed in Moody and Jones libraries, which focus on, supporting the entire curriculum. And then we have 5 special libraries that include the Texas collection and Armstrong Browning collection. And I mentioned that to explain kind of the context for the event that we put together last year. So my name, again, is Laura Semrau, and I support the English, History, and Modern Language and Cultures departments. So today I'd like to share with you 4 key takeaways for library event planning. I'm going to highlight including faculty and graduate students in the event planning process, building a team, offering graduate students a chance to contribute their work and ideas, and presenting a range of activities that appeal to a broad range of tastes, abilities, and skills. So the event I'd like to share with you is an event we put together last fall called Shakespeare 400. We celebrated the 400th printing of the first folio. We ended up doing 3 days of events. And that included a lecture, panel presentations, a concert, hands-on activities, acting, training in acting, and exhibits in multiple locations. So we even had a concert as well of Renaissance music. The picture you see here is from the exhibit at the Armstrong Browning Library, where we highlighted different editions of Shakespeare that were within that collection. So I want to mention as well that I've only been at Baylor about 1.5 years, but even though I am relatively new to the institution, I was still able to help put together this event. So I say that to encourage you. You don't have to be at an institution for a long time before you decide to go ahead and put together a library hosted event. So first of all, how important it is to include faculty and graduate students in the event planning process. This factor was definitely a key to our success, so let me explain. Here at Baylor, we have a group of researchers called the Medieval Renaissance Research Seminar. They're members who come together, just once in a while in person, but it centers on anybody at the institution who does research related to the Middle Ages or the Renaissance. So this is a multidisciplinary, comprehensive list from across the university. Evidently, I don't know exactly when it was founded, but about 10 years ago, some grad students took the time to go through every departmental website and gather the lists of the researchers who do any work in the Middle Ages or Renaissance. So it's quite it's cross-disciplinary. Every, political science, history, English, many different disciplines are represented. And it includes both graduate students and faculty members. So last spring, I was invited to join this group for just one of their social gatherings and started to get a sense of who they were. And then when this idea for the Shakespeare 400 percolated, I realized that these folks would be really helpful in planning the event. So indeed they were. When we were starting to gather names of who might be involved, I just sent kind of a query out to this group. And sure enough, all these ideas started coming back. And as those ideas percolated, the event kind of took form. And the more folks who wanted to be involved, we figured out ways to put them together into groups that made sense. I here have a picture of the poster that we used to advertise on campus, in addition to, of course, email and a website. But one of the grad students involved in MRRS wanted to like pound the pavement and get as many posters up as possible. So that was helpful just in terms of like a hands-on helper. And they also broadcast when we were getting closer to the event. They said, please come, tell if you're an instructor, make sure your students get extra credit to come. So it was really helpful to have that network in place. Also, the faculty members involved in this research group were just incredible. I can't say enough. So to give you an example, this gentleman here, second from the left, Jake Abel, he's in the French department, but he also happens to be a Shakespearean actor. So when he received the email this summer about a Shakespeare event taking shape, he brought me the idea of having an live acting demonstration. So we invited his fellow troupe member, Skylar, to come down from Chicago for the event. And they together demonstrated Renaissance acting practice. So one of the key things is this scroll. So actors often got their part the night before the performance. They didn't have time to memorize it. So this they would be allowed to keep the scroll in hand. And but Dr. Abel and his friend were able to show us the kind of conventions of what certain words meant to indicate like motion towards or away from your other actors. So they gathered these students from our theater classes to kind of get a live in action tutorial on how to do Renaissance acting. So that was just fun and educational. And that was all Dr. Abel's idea to put that together. In addition, we wanted to have like an opening address our very first day. And I was having trouble getting in touch with a certain professor in our English department. So Dr. Katie Calloway in the English department said, oh, I know him, I'll get in touch with him. And she was my advocate and was able to line him up as a speaker. However, 2 weeks before the event, that person ended up needing to back out. And we were like, oh no, there goes our first event. But Dr. Calloway said, well, I have a friend at another institution nearby. Maybe that person might be able to help us out. Sure enough, she reached out to him, and he did have a lecture in his back pocket and was able to, actually, he was willing and able to be a guest speaker. So that was amazing that because of her network, we were able to have a backup speaker for our opening Shakespeare talk. And she also arranged an honorarium for him through the English department. So that was very generous and certainly something that was kind of above and beyond anything we asked. So without her help, that first event might have been a bit of a flop. Additionally, so many folks on that medieval Renaissance list wanted to contribute something that we ended up putting together a panel of showcasing our Shakespeare scholarship on campus. So we had faculty from the English, Spanish, political science, and great text departments all represented then. And they were able to even integrate rare books from our Texas collection. You might be wondering, what does the Texas collection have to do with Shakespeare? Because indeed, the collection focuses on Texas. So let me explain a little bit. This was Dr. Alex McNair from our Spanish department. He was able to focus on rare books from the time of Shakespeare, 17th century books that are housed at the Texas collection. So for instance, this picture here is taken from a book titled Purchas His Pilgrims, published in 1625, but housed in our Texas collection. And you'll see here that Dr. McNair wrote, you can see Queen Elizabeth right here on the upper right, lying in state after her death, and a figure that could be Hamlet and Yorick's skull contemplating death. So we see right here the skull reminiscent of Hamlet. So this is just one small example of how Dr. McNair was able to take items from our rare book collection and put them in context to Shakespeare, also talking about themes like imperialism and talking about, the context for Shakespeare's work. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we also had a professor from our English department speaking on Latinx Shakespeare, examining Shakespeare reception from Latino communities and reminding us that Shakespeare often represents British colonialism and is not always accepted warmly, and is often even rejected. So we had a really nice broad range of perspectives represented in that panel. So this is just a sample of creativity and thoughtfulness our faculty members brought to the event. So second main point, how important it is to build a team to help you put things together. As Helen Keller is credited as saying, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. So the team helped me think creatively and big. This was about 8 of my colleagues here at the library. This whole event was born out of my idea to just do something in honor of the 400th anniversary of the first folio. And so I chatted with my friend Beth Farwell, and she said, well, we don't have a first edition we can put on display like many libraries would do if they had one. So let's do an event. And the more we talked as a group, and our group kind of formed as we brainstormed, we realized that we could do 3 days worth of events and therefore include more ideas and reach people whose schedules varied and so on. So things really blossomed as time progressed. We started planning in about June, which is about 5 months before the event happened, and met roughly monthly, but just basically as needed. So we were able to incorporate special collections, as I just mentioned. And again, the Texas collection was able to put together an exhibit, not the books I mentioned earlier, but Waco here in Texas had a Waco Shakespeare Club in 1899. And they put on performances and had lectures, and we have the archives from that group. And so we had an exhibit of the Waco Shakespeare Club. So nice tie between the theme and our local history. And then we had a representative from our marketing team who could offer advice on just how to connect our community with the event. He put together a poster and website and all of that, which I would not have been able to do on my own at all. Also friends from our makerspace and people with printing and calligraphy experience were able to add hands-on elements, which I'll discuss in a moment. So everybody truly enriched the event, and we were truly better coming together. So I couldn't be more grateful for all of those helping hands and ideas. So that was a short point, but an important one. Moving on, it's important to offer graduate students a chance to contribute their work and their ideas. So with one of our folks who responded when I sent out the call to the MRRS list was a graduate student who said that she's working on an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing, and wanted to share that with us. So at first it was a little hard to figure out how to add a 10-minute segment of a book when we didn't have anything similar. So we ended up adding that to the very first day's lecture and acting. But I was a little bit unsure if things would flow well. Well, serendipitously, when we had lecture number 1 pull out and lecturer number 2 step in, lecturer number 2, his topic ended up being Much Ado About Nothing. So it ended up working out quite beautifully in a way that I couldn't have arranged even if I wanted to. So that was amazing. And then this author, she gave me permission to share her name, Olivia Taylor, English graduate student. She received so much positive feedback from sharing her work at the Shakespeare 400 that it inspired her to keep seeking publishers. And she actually does have a book contract lined up. She just shared with me. So that's titled Welcome to the Paradise Motel, and it's coming next year. So from Apprentice House Press. So we're really proud of her, and it's encouraging to look back and see how maybe this gave her a little bit of boost of encouragement to pursue publication. And also the Renaissance Music Concert we hosted in the Armstrong Library. So it was a great chance to bring folks into that space who might not go to that special library very often. I know for sure that we had at least one graduate student as part of the performers that day. I don't know all the performers and their background, but it certainly gave at least one student a chance to showcase their work. Additionally, this gave us a chance to, let grad students contribute to the scholarly conversation. So I don't have stats, unfortunately, on exactly how many grad students attended or asked questions, but this picture is testament. I know that the student in the red sweater is engaging with the faculty after the panel presentation on our final day. And I know for a fact that other grad students were involved as well in the intellectual discussions that came about. So, and we also just provided a space to allow folks who might, like, for instance, in this picture, this is a Spanish professor, the one who spoke on the 17th century rare books, talking with English grad students. So they might not have even met each other before. And here are the books on display, the rare books that were available for that lecture. So that just gives you a glimpse into how that worked. So my fourth and final point is to present a range of activities that appeal to a broad range of tastes, abilities, and skills. So obviously this needs to be tailored to what you are able to do, your materials and skills and capacity, but I just want to share some of what we came up with. So to kind of, start with the basics, a Shakespeare event would, at a university, kind of needs to include the lecture aspect. We were able to also have the performance of music and drama. Here we have students performing a scene from Romeo and Juliet. So starting with those pieces was kind of essential and wonderful. But as I mentioned, my teammates came up with some really creative hands-on activities. So here we have the opportunity to bind your own copy of A Midsummer Night's Dream. So these are two English grad students here. I did not solicit this picture. They were so excited about this activity that they said, please take our picture. And they're holding their completed leather-bound copies of A Midsummer Night's Dream. So this activity started here in terms of the steps were outlined on this whiteboard. And then when Andrew, one of our library staff, was able to explain the steps, and then students went to the different tables to fold and hammer and bind their miniature edition here. And this was wildly successful. Not only the two students pictured here, but we had somebody mention that they skipped class in order to attend this event. We even had some staff members who looked at everything we were offering, and this was the one thing they wanted to come to. Other things didn't interest them. So I love this because I could never have come up with this idea on my own. But the creativity of our larger team helped inspire something really hands-on and really exciting. And one student even said that she wished we also had a lecture about 17th century binding practices, which, just helps me think about ways that in the future maybe we could tie hands-on activity to the intellectual lecture kind of piece. So that was quite successful. Printmaking. So here you see a picture of our book beetle printing press. We used our 3D printer to, not me, but my wonderful colleagues, to create this image of Shakespeare that people could print and take home with them. We also had typesetting, a folding an octavo sheet, and an illumination station all nearby here. You can kind of see this in the background over here. So many different hands-on activities. And this was set up right outside of our panel on the same day. So the idea was people coming to the panel could hopefully do an activity before or after. So that worked relatively well. And just another way to include tactile learning into the event. Another hands-on activity was exploring our book arts collection. In case this term is unfamiliar to you, an artist book is art in book form. So the Shakespeare 400 event was the perfect time to not only display some of these books, but also invite students to engage with them and perhaps be inspired in their own work. So you'll see, it was just a chance for students to pick up, and since they're not rare items, they can handle them as much as they want, and get a sense of like, wow, people can come to this intersection of artistry and the book. So that was a great opportunity to highlight parts of that collection. So just to summarize, when planning your event, include faculty and graduate students in the event planning process, build a team to help you out because it's a lot of work, offer grad students a chance to share their ideas and their scholarship, and present a range of activities that appeal to a broad range of tastes and abilities and skills if possible. So just some last minute thoughts. Don't forget the money, the budget. I was very lucky, and things kind of fell into place without needing to work too hard in this regard. But it was pretty, not that we had a lot of line items, just things like asking for travel money for the actor visiting from Chicago. Our library was able to provide funding for that. But the English department was very generous in helping with money for some food and the speaker honorarium that was last minute. So I was very thankful that those things came together. But when planning your own event, don't forget that part. Book your spaces early, depending on how busy your campus is. We booked our spaces months in advance to make sure that they were going to be available at the time that we needed them. Advertising, thankfully I had help in this regard, but I also took advantage of something on our campus called Cultural Arts Credit, which allowed our event to be broadcast on an email list to students who needed extra credit for attending events on campus. But the process to apply for that took several hours, was much more involved than I planned on. So it's just important to think about those kinds of things in advance and realize that it'll take time. And then if you're having a big event, make sure that your sound and technology work in advance. Thankfully, I had a team who could help with that, but it's important to think about that in advance. So when thinking about your own event, wait until the timing is right. Make sure you have a theme and energy that coalesce at the right time so that you can make sure that you'll have the momentum to move forward and make things happen. When I think about what could have be done better, I would say I wish we hadn't conflicted with other events that happened, even within our own library system on the same day. I mean, at a big campus, there'll always be something else going on at the same time as your event. But I wished we had checked our own library calendar a little bit better. So that's something to remember. And then also in retrospect, we realized that it was a little bit tricky when we were having, say, the Midsummer Night's Dream binding activity right after our opening lecture. The binding people felt like they didn't have enough time to set up, but we wanted to also capitalize on there being people in the space from the part one. So maybe if we had set that up next door, then it would have been, people would have had time to set up instead of feeling rushed, all of those logistics. But obviously in your space, you'll have your own considerations. But overall, our event went quite well, and I hope you might be inspired to try something at your library that might engage your community. So let's take a moment to brainstorm. I think we have a little time left. We just have a few minutes left, I realize, but in the chat, feel free to ask any questions, or if there's anything that you might be interested in sharing, please let me know any ideas you've had.
Hey, Laura, we do have a question in the chat.
Okay, great.
It says, getting credit is a great student incentive, even if it's a hassle. And it says, do you have a plan to do a similar event since this one was a success?
Thank you. Yes, I have in the back of my mind kind of what might be next, but and yeah, it's still percolating, so I'm not quite ready to share that, but definitely yes in the future. I think though, like I need to wait till the time is right, right? It took so much energy and so much work that, and something I meant to mention earlier was that my own responsibilities of being a librarian didn't go away when this event was happening. So you realize that, okay, I love doing this, but you need to wait until the timing is just right, because otherwise you get burnt out. Yeah.
If anybody else has any questions, we have 2 minutes. And Laura, is it okay if I put your email in the chat for anyone that might have questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. This was great. I do a lot of planning events at our library, and I never even thought to do a bookbinding one.
Oh, good, good. Yeah. It's amazing that like you never know what's going to pique people's interest. Like I never would have guessed that. Um, anybody have other ideas for things they might try on their campus? Yeah, partnering is super important. And I guess one last thought is like you'll never know what comes out of something like this. Like when you start brainstorming and working with other people, you'll make new friends and you might inspire students to publish their work. You might like the 17th century books from the Texas collection, those rarely see the light of day. So it was really exciting to see that kind of thing uh, come to be highlighted in an event like this. 3D printing to make prints, yeah, really fun. I never could have done that on my own. So I'm very impressed by my colleagues who can make that happen.
Okay, that is time. If you do have any questions, her email is in the chat. Please reach out. This is exciting. Thank you, Laura, for sharing
Okay,
this with us.
thanks so much.